Oh, hi. Didn't realise you were there. Hello. Well, my name's Paul Gray. I wasn't ignoring you. At least I don't think I was. I'd just like to share a thought with you for today. I'd like to look at a guy called Zacchaeus. You'll find him in Luke's Gospel, chapter 19. We're living in strange times, aren't we, at the moment? One of the things I really like doing is riding my bike. I'm a bit of a cyclist when I can, and it's something I really enjoy. And one really nice thing about cycling is we're a bit of a group of friends, really. Even if you don't know people, you will speak to them on the road as you're cycling along, often giving a wave as you go by. And as you go down the road, there'll be somebody cycling the other way, and you'll give them a wave and maybe shout hello. And it's people you just don't know, but you whiz past each other, acknowledging each other, that you both enjoy the same sport. And that's really pleasant. And even if you're pedaling hard and you've got your hands down on the handlebars and you're not able to actually wave, you will get a little flick of the wrist and just the fingers raising from the handlebar. We always acknowledge each other, and that's really quite nice. And of course, many cyclists use something called Strava and record their rides. And it's great to get what we call kudos. It's a sort of social media for cyclists, and you give each other kudos for your ride, and sometimes comments too. And that can be really encouraging. One of the things I've noticed recently is that cyclists don't seem to wave anymore, even though you're on the opposite side of the road and you're probably 4 or 5 meters away from them as you pass each other. They don't acknowledge you anymore. I don't think it's just me, because some of my friends who are cyclists have said the same thing. Something's changed about the way we respond to each other, probably down to these strange times that we're in at the moment. The other day I was walking through the churchyard, having a look at various things that have been going on there, and as I walked down the path through the churchyard, I sensed there was somebody behind me, and I looked round and there was a lady walking a dog through the churchyard. She wasn't making eye-to-eye contact with me, probably intentionally, I think, and looking rather glum. So I turned and said to her, "Hi, good morning, how are you doing?" And talked about the weather and usual other things. And she very quickly smiled and broke into conversation. And we stayed, 3 or 4 meters apart, but we had a short conversation together. And, well, we didn't say much, nothing of any real importance, just usual chat. But for her, it seemed really quite special. She was quite excited and smiling and animate in her conversation. And it was really very pleasant, very nice actually to have a conversation, especially with a stranger in the churchyard. And I think for a lot of people at the moment, we're not getting that sort of social contact, which seems to be a great shame. Look at our passage today, and do take a look at it. It's in Luke chapter 19. And what we find there is that Zacchaeus is, in fact, a wealthy man. If you saw him in the street, he'd be smartly dressed. He'd have a nice house. He was rather well-to-do, but he was a tax collector, and that made him rather unpopular with people, because it meant he worked for the Romans, and he would collect the taxes from the people and maybe collect just a bit too much and perhaps put a bit in his pocket before he passed it on to the Romans. So he wasn't very popular. So while on the face of it, he looked perfectly secure in his way of life and perfectly happy, but yet possibly he was a lonely man. In many ways, he was socially distanced from all the other people there. And on this particular day, he'd heard that Jesus was passing through Jericho, where he lived. So he thought he'd go and see what Jesus was about. So he went into the streets, thought he'd take a really good spot to see what was going on, and climbed a tree to have a look. So we find Zacchaeus up a tree, possibly a lonely guy in a busy world, possibly with no friends, but a very comfortable lifestyle. And he wasn't really part of the crowd either, not part of the in crowd, and not part of the crowd watching for Jesus coming along that road in Jericho, and certainly not part of the crowd up the tree. As Jesus came along, he wouldn't be expecting to see a man up a tree, that's for sure. But he did see Zacchaeus up the tree and shouted, "Hi, Zacchaeus." And I guess Zacchaeus would probably be quite taken aback that this guy Jesus had taken the time to actually see him and speak to him and call him by name and then say, "I want to come and chat with you in your home." Jesus really wanted Zacchaeus to get to know him. So Zacchaeus up the tree was not just socially isolated from the people at the time, but also isolated by distance up the tree. But yet Jesus wanted to engage with him. And I think sometimes in these times that we're living in at the moment, where we have to really keep that distance between each other, a minimum of 2 meters, they tell us. And we're calling that social distancing. Well, I want to call that physical distancing rather than socially distancing. The socially distancing bit is when we just don't relate to each other. That's being socially distanced, rather like Zacchaeus was. And sometimes I think we need to stay distanced, but not socially distanced. And that means saying something as simple as hi. The other day I was in the supermarket, socially distanced in the queue, as you are, and got to the checkout, and of course the girls behind big sheets of perspex. And it would be very easy just to have a faceless transaction at that point. But I just said to the girl, "Hi, how are you doing today? How's your day been?" And that opened up a whole conversation between us as I piled my things onto the counter there in the supermarket, and she put them through the till. And I thought that was really quite nice, rather than just being remote from what was going on, remote from her. And today, as we go about our daily lives, I would encourage you, yes, to remain distant from people, to follow the government guidelines, but not to be socially distanced from people. Just say hi and start that conversation. You don't really know how much that might mean to somebody in their life in these very difficult times. For that lady in the graveyard that I spoke to, her face lit up. Maybe what she needed was just a simple conversation with somebody, with anybody. And as we do that as Christians, well, we're called to do that as Christians. We are called not to be socially isolated from everybody else. Yes, distantly isolated at the moment, but not socially so. When Jesus met with Zacchaeus, who was up the tree, he did not want to be isolated from him. And as we meet other people, say hi, get close to them, not physically, but in conversation, so that you might just show a little bit of Jesus in what you say and what you do, and that might just make somebody's day. So I'm not going to say goodbye, I'm going to say hi.